Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're watching School Psych Podcast, and we have a very important, very serious topic tonight that I think is going to be really helpful to us as school psychologists to be in the know, and just in case we come across this. So my name is Rachel. I'm a school psychologist in Maryland, and I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca, who's going to talk about how to participate tonight. Rebecca.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca. I'm a school psychologist in Connecticut, and I'm looking forward to this serious and important topic. But before we begin, I'd just like to share a word from our sponsor. We want to take a quick moment to talk about Med Travelers. As a school psychologist, having a strong support system in your career is instrumental in finding the placements and opportunities that fit your goals. That is why we are proud to partner with Med Travelers, the industry leader for staffing school psychologists in districts nationwide. Offering the advantage of W-2 employment status along with full health insurance coverage and 401k retirement options, Med Travelers is a true advocate for your career success. To learn more about Med Travelers and to discover the ways they can help you succeed in your school psychology career, visit medtravelers.com/school psych. And so welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here this evening. Excuse a little bit of a hoarse throat that I have and a little bit of a cold that I'm getting over. If you are watching us live, please feel free to join in on the conversation with your questions and thoughts right alongside the YouTube video if you log into your YouTube account. If you're watching later over time, you can also add comments, and we will be checking there to comment and reply. If you're on Twitter, please use the hashtag Psyched Podcast. And on either of our Facebook page, you can add questions and comments in messages on School Psyched, your school psychologist, or the School Psych podcast page. I'll be looking out for notifications and looking forward to this important conversation. And now I'm going to hand it over to Eric, who is going to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Rebecca. We are happy to have with us today Rosie Cataldo. And as Rachel and Rebecca said, we're going to talk about a serious topic. So, it may be one that some people will feel perhaps triggered by, or there may be, folks who've experienced trauma or sexual abuse that may be, this may bring up some of those issues. So we want to let people know, this is what we'll be talking about, but the importance of partnering with community agencies and doing what we can to combat sexual abuse and human trafficking is really important. And so we welcome our guest tonight, Rosie Cataldo, and I'll just tell you a little bit about her before we introduce her and let her share. She's a child advocate who serves as a human trafficking consultant, researcher, and prevention educator, offering students the tools to be safe and creating lifelong barriers to the trauma, and to trauma is her passion. She's honored to serve as a member of Rotary International's Global Human Trafficking Task Force and Minnesota's Human Trafficking Task Force. She holds a certification from the Association of the Recovery of Children, ARC, and Fight Child Sex Trafficking's comprehensive training course, which affords her a privileged relationship with ARC and its strategic partners. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Journalism and a minor in Spanish from the University of Minnesota, and serves as the Director of Outreach, working with schools to spread prevention education pertaining to childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, assault, exploitation, and human trafficking with Childhood Victories. So welcome, Rosie. Thank you for joining us tonight. And maybe we could start off with, how did you get into this work? What brought you to this path?
Well, I'm really passionate about prevention within the realm of human trafficking because it's not my personal story, but it is very personal to me because it has affected a friend's children in my community. I feel like I found out about one of a more severe scheme as my entrance into this realm. So my friends' children were pulled into a very sophisticated sex trafficking ring by their childcare provider. And the children were 2. and they were violated in their home and elsewhere by people coming and going in the home, all while the parents were at work. And the mom discovered some circular play that was going on. She was concerned that perhaps the toddlers had Asperger's or something. She wasn't sure what was going on with this change in behavior. And in digging a little bit more into that, she discovered some things that were happening and just utterly devastating. So she really she paused her professional work that she was doing and full on went into just 100% play therapy for the kids. So I was familiar with human trafficking. The Super Bowl came to our area, and I know there were a lot of great things going on. I'm in Minneapolis. There were a lot of great things going on to spread awareness and to go after some schemes that were happening surrounding the Super Bowl, which that is very common for trafficking to follow large events that take place. So I was aware of just a bit aware of what was going on, but I had no idea the magnitude and depth of the issue. And I was not aware of how prevalent children are within this realm, very young children. So I joined our state's human trafficking task force, and anyone can join a state human trafficking task force just to educate myself and learn more. And in doing so, I found there really wonderful resources for survivors. And that is so important and necessary. But what is equally, and if not more important, is prevention. Because if you look at trafficking as kind of a combative issue, you have to level up against your opponent. So you have to level up against the traffickers, which they're entrepreneurs in the worst sense of the word. So one area where we can get a leg up on exploiters and traffickers is through prevention, because yes, there are definite schemes that involve taking someone from a public place, kidnapping, absolutely, assaults, yes. However, the majority of people who are pulled into human trafficking, and I'm going to focus more on sex trafficking, that is through manipulation. So it's through relationships, through dating, through promises of a job, and I'll talk more about that, and even familial human trafficking as well. So it's a massive issue. It's very large. It's very deep, and it's worldwide. But we're in the United States. Most unfortunately, we are the #1 demand for sex trafficking. So I feel like it's a tremendous disservice to not talk about it with our kids. And it's not something that we can just present a curriculum, drop it off, and be done. This has to be a community-wide support. So not only educating students on the topic and wrapping support systems around them, but educating the educators and including the parents as well. So this really has to be an ongoing thing. It can't just be a one and done. So it's really, we talk to, like in our district, we talk to 5th graders about staying off drugs and the dangers of alcohol and drugs and how that can negatively impact your life if you misuse them. And I feel like since human trafficking has surpassed the drug trade as far as worldwide illegal enterprises, it is so necessary to address this with students. I can talk a little bit more about that.
Wow, thank you. You know, it's interesting. I think just hearing that little bit, you know, I think we probably, I speak for myself, I guess, but as an educator, I don't have any idea the depth of this issue, how prevalent it is in communities, and how many people it affects. And just as you mentioned, ways that people are entrepreneurializing and monetizing this and profiting off of this kind of abuse. And of course, no idea about, that large events, that these kinds of things follow large events and things. So as educators, what might be some ways, as you said, it's not just a drop off a curriculum kind of thing. How are some ways that you're partnering with schools and connecting and in, educating on this topic?
Oh, thanks for asking. I've partnered with Childhood Victories, founded by Victor Pacini, out there just outside of Chicago, so not too far from me in Minneapolis. And Victor Pacini founded Childhood Victories 22 years ago, and he's been going into schools and talking to kids about confidence and resilience. And in 2014, there was a law passed in his home state of Illinois called Aaron's Law. And Aaron's Law mandates body safety education now in 37 states. And so Victor himself is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. He was assaulted at age 8 and told no one for 11 years. And he's an amazing person. I describe him as Mr. Rogers meets Quentin Tarantino. He has developed a phenomenal age-appropriate program to address kids about how to keep their body safe and not to keep unsafe secrets. So sexual abuse is the number one, that's the worst form of bullying that a child can experience. And if we can talk to kids about how to keep their bodies safe, that's a massive vulnerability that exploiters rely on to further exploit youth and pull them into trafficking situations. So that's why I reached out to him, and I was so grateful. He has a phenomenal program called Be Seen and Heard, and he's been in almost 7 states now. In the spring, he'll be in Minnesota, and has presented to about 800,000 students. And he's had close to 400 disclosures of students saying, Victor, I'm connecting to your story. And then it's a double-edged sword. It's really, really challenging. It's tough to hear that a child is experiencing abuse. But on the other side, it's magnificent because we are a part of getting that student the help that they need and working with the school on appropriate protocol to get the student the help that they need. So it's not only incredibly powerful for the student, but for their classroom, for their family, for their community. And this is really systemic changing, that we're taking this taboo topic and getting out of our comfort zone and talking to kids just about how to be safe. He has phenomenal language and talks about safe touch and unsafe touch, and like, hey, mom and dad may help you give you a bath. Is that a safe touch or an unsafe touch? And we, interactive with the kids. Hey, you go to the doctor. Is it okay for the doctor to look or touch your private body parts? Is that okay? Yeah, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. So giving the kids just really simple and appropriate language. It's fantastic. And I had been working with a local program that unfortunately folded during COVID, doing what Victor had been doing on a much smaller scale. And so when I found him on Google, thanks Google, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I'm so excited. And so fortunately for me, schools had reached out to Victor to ask about human trafficking education, and he didn't have anything. So it was a really great partnership, and for many reasons. But I was elated that we joined forces. So, and schools will ask, well, what's more important? And I say it's all critical. It's all critical because you're giving kids, even though they may not be experiencing any form of abuse at home. Maybe their parents are going through a divorce and they want permission. They need permission to talk about tough things with their school counselor. So just not keeping things bottled up, not keeping unsafe secrets inside. So it covers a lot. It's not just abuse. It's about being able to talk about things that are on your mind and troubling you. But the main core message is about body safety. And again, that is just so important, because that is a building block, a safety tool they can take with them throughout life. And that is a huge defense against exploitation, because exploiters want nothing to do with competent kids. They're looking for vulnerabilities in kids that they can find a void and seep in and pretend to fill it, but really be grooming them for exploitation.
I know you have a PowerPoint. I have some questions, but I'm thinking maybe, do you want to start with your PowerPoint before you might be answering some of the things that, we have questions about within that?
Absolutely. And I have a dog that crept into my office here, so I apologize. To get her out. Okay, so can you all see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so all right. So here is what I co-created with Victor Piccini. Is called the ValYOU Project. So raising self-worth through human trafficking awareness. And the reason here, excuse me, I'm going to put the dog up here. Excuse me. The reason we are doing this is the reason Victor even started Childhood Victories is because regarding the prevalence of sexual abuse. So 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will experience a form of sexual abuse prior to age 18. And 91% is by someone they know or kind of know. So this is, if you're looking at the average size of a classroom, that could be 5 or 6 kids in each classroom. So it is, and it's even more prevalent than these statistics show, because we know that not all kids are going to talk about it. So I just wanted to highlight that, because that is a huge reason why we partnered up. And regarding the premise of the ValYOU Project, the curriculum pertaining to human trafficking that we created, we really wanted to start out with the students' intrinsic value. So because if you peel back the layers, anyone who is exploited has experienced some form of trauma, and they may not have a support system that they need. So we talk about their own intrinsic value. You, just by being born, you have value. You are not a commodity. You are not to be sold. You have intrinsic value. And so if I go ahead and play this intro, can you all hear it?
I'm here to speak with you specifically as it pertains to human trafficking. I invite you to join me on my life's mission. Empowering youth is my greatest passion. Why? Because our future lies within you. There are key elements you will need to know to empower yourself, to keep yourself safer, and help your peers be safer as well. I am here today to remind or teach you about the unlimited potential you have. It lies within you. Maybe you are someone who already recognizes your worth. Perhaps you have a great support system and a loving family. Or maybe you're searching for added support in your life and you need a reminder that you have extraordinary value. You may have heard that in order to love someone else, it starts within yourself. This is so true. You cannot give respect when you do not truly honor and respect your own self. In order for you to have that respect, it had to be demonstrated to you. that is a form of love and guidance. Some of you have experienced that to varying degrees, and some of you have not. If you do not adequately have a support system, people in your life who you trust and make you feel safe and valued, there are without a doubt people who can and will step into that role as a support. And we are going to talk more about this today. But before we begin, I would like you to make an observation.
So thanks for letting me show that. That's the intro to the ValYOU Project, the human trafficking curriculum for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so I thought it was just simpler if I show you the intro, because I strive to not throw out scary statistics and frighten kids. I want to come at this in a very compassionate way and show, hey, you matter. You are a valuable person just by being you. And of course, we know that some kids who get pulled off into unsafe situations don't have the support systems that they need. So it's really encouraging them to tap into someone or something that can help them connect to other people. So if they can't find that within their family, are they in a good friend group? Do they have a counselor they can connect with, a teacher, teammates, even classmates, or a coach? So just talking to them about ways to connect with people. And then I go in and define what human trafficking is. Human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, harboring of people through force, fraud, or deception with the aim of exploiting them for profit. And then I don't get into a lot of statistics with kids because they would fall asleep. So talk about just that it's the fastest growing illegal enterprise in the world. And it is estimated to be a 150 billion a year global industry. So if you think in terms of a Costco, that's along the same lines. So statistics for you all, if you want just to know a few stats, I can highlight some statistics, like states with the highest human trafficking in numbers. California consistently has the highest human trafficking rates in the US. There were 1,507 cases reported in 2019. So 1,118 of these cases were sex trafficking cases, 158 labor trafficking, 69 were both. So the majority of sex trafficking cases reported in California were illicit massage and spa businesses and hotel or motel based. It's followed by Texas with 1,080 cases, Florida with 896 cases, in New York with 454 cases. So I'm not going to get into too many stats with you, but just to give you a basic understanding, I wanted to share those. And then back to the curriculum I talk about, which I highlighted a little bit at the beginning. One myth is that human trafficking always involves a kidnapping, and that is not the case. And as I mentioned, yes, of course, assaults happen, and you always want to be safe and aware of your surroundings. But the majority of traffickers use psychological means, tricking people into trust, manipulating people, threatening people, to then further exploit them. And I wanted to highlight just some cases locally in Minneapolis, just to give you an idea of what some different schemes look like. There was a case locally just a couple months ago where currently a young woman who's 19, Gisela Castro Medina, is being tried for human trafficking. And just from my lens, I would gather that she was manipulated and tricked into being a recruiter within human trafficking. But Anton Lazaro, age 30, is a GOP strategist, and he is being tried for human trafficking. There's a local substitute teacher who is being investigated, has been arrested locally for exploiting some students that he worked with. So it's just important for students to realize that no matter who it is in their life, if someone is getting closer than normal, paying a lot of attention to them, and I'm going to talk more about this later, but just lots of gift giving, and just feeling closer than normal, whether it's physically or with showering them with gifts. It's just, if something feels off, trust your gut and talk to someone about it to get the help that you need. One case that happened just a few years ago in 2016 in Minneapolis is very devastating, and I think it's really important to highlight it. And this criminal Anton was befriending boys online, high school boys, involved in different sports. And so locally, he was pretending he was a female modeling agent. And so he would request photos from boys, high school students, and he would find out by what they post on Instagram. He was using Instagram, what sports teams they were on, what friend groups they had, and he would just infiltrate those areas, befriend them. Again, he was pretending to be a female modeling agent, and he would ask for pictures, and then the pictures became inappropriate photos. And then he turned around and said, I'm going to share these and tell your friends and family about this if you don't, send money. And that, thankfully, he was arrested. He exploited over 200 people. And devastatingly, there were 2 boys who committed suicide as a result of this sextortion scheme. So this is something that it's utterly devastating. And as it just goes to show, it can just infiltrate anyone. So it's super important to have an open line of communication with your kids, like that, showing them, telling them, like, no matter what anyone says you've done, I love you no matter what. And just know that if someone is saying something else about them, that they are going to ultimately trust and believe that the relationship they have and the truth that is shared between a parent and child. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's so important to be talking to your kids about their online usage and take breaks from social media, because I didn't grow up with this, and it's really, really devastating to see the increase in suicide and depression as a result from social media and comparisons and bullying. So this is clearly a very dangerous scheme, and it's just another reason why we need to push for that really, really good communication with our kids and students. And I'll talk a little more about ways to play defense against this as well. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm just highlighting this because we've got our basic physiological needs, our food, clothing, shelter, and then we need to feel safe in our own home in order to thrive. And most unfortunately, during the pandemic, some kids were not in a safe space. So I'm sure you can attest to what you're seeing this school year. I've talked to different school officials and teachers, and I know there are lots of different things they're seeing as far as different behaviors, and even in first graders, just disorganization and remembering how to be with people again, the interpersonal skills. So to highlight Maslow's hierarchy of needs, on top of safety is love and belonging. And then we can build our own self-esteem based on that, and self-actualization by being a contributing member of society and actually going outside of ourselves and helping others. So when we don't have these basic needs, particularly safety and even food, clothing, shelter, then we are in a vulnerable spot, and kids are especially in a vulnerable position because we've got some voids going on, and then traffickers work to figure out, what does this particular person need? How can I fill it? And then how can I remove other sources? How can I pretty much isolate them and just get them really connected with me and then exploit them by using force, fraud, coercion. And I'll talk more about that. So another myth is that all people being trafficked are held against their will. So some people who have been exploited lack the basic necessities to physically get out. Some are afraid for their safety, but some individuals have been so manipulated that they would not even know what to do if they were out of it, if they had the possibility of getting out of that situation. So more often than not, they stay for reasons that are more complicated and of the extreme manipulation. So if you think of, the average age of youth being trafficked is 13. So you think of a 13-year-old being sold, the average amount that someone is sold during the course of a 24-hour period is about 10 times. So that is forced sex, so rape. And they are just a shell of themselves. They think they're a commodity. They've been beaten down so much. They are almost, some can be robotic. And so it's a false assumption on the rescue side that if you go in to try to infiltrate a situation and get these trafficking victims out, not all of them are going to want to come out because they don't know how to function outside of this realm. So it's just another reason that if a person is pulled into a trafficking situation, the odds of them getting out are very slim. And if you do get out, you have the rehabilitation is really, it takes a lot. It takes a lot, and it's not something that you just get over. It's a huge process, and it has been done. It can be done. But my reason for saying all this is that we could eliminate the needs of so much aftercare and so much of what police focus on if we had prevention in schools. Right now, there are only 5 states in the U.S. that mandate human trafficking prevention education. And I personally think that is a huge failure, a system failure at a colossal level. I've spoken to a local sex crimes investigator about prevention education, and in seeing what we've created, he said, if more kids had this type of prevention, I would have a lot less cases on my desk. So it's just another reason to push to get outside our comfort zone and to come at this issue with a compassionate approach and using education instead of just scare tactics so that people want to, just look the other way, because this is not going to be solved unless the majority of the population can really look at it and learn about it and take action. So the different types of human trafficking, there's peer-to-peer trafficking, there's trafficking within the family, there's romantic partner trafficking, and then trafficking through a stranger. And regarding exploitation, just to define it, sexual exploitation involves someone under the age of 18 exchanging a sexual act for something in return. So this happens when there is a need that the child or youth desires, such as a need for money, food, shelter, protection, love, acceptance, popularity, and anything else. It is a form of child abuse, and it is never the victim's fault. And over 90% of sexual exploitation is first facilitated online. So just another opportunity for parents and educators to play defense against this and have the tough conversations that need to be had. So to highlight the top recruiting tactics for sex trafficking, that can be a dating partner or a marriage proposal. As I mentioned, it can be familial. It can be through a job offer or advertisement. It can also be for a false promise or a fraudulent scheme. Like I had highlighted the sextortion scheme that was in Minneapolis with the male posing as the female talent scout. So there can be lots of different types of these schemes regarding even college interviews. There were some students locally being solicited for different colleges and being asked to come to certain places for interviews. And some of the interviews were off campus. So that's a red flag right there. And it's really, it really is so, it boils my blood that this is happening, because it's like, wow. So do we have to follow our kids around to every job interview they go to and every college interview? It's like just keeping tabs on where they are, who they're with. Knowing their schedule is huge and a deterrent. And if they feel uncomfortable, if they just have that inner feeling that something is wrong with a person or a situation, always trust that. Just 100% don't override that feeling, because that feeling could definitely save your life. Some control tactics of traffickers and recruiters, they use substance abuse. So there's definitely drugging that can go on, and getting some of their victims hooked on drugs in order to numb themselves and to perform different acts that they're expected to perform. And of course, there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, there's intimidation and emotional abuse tactics that exploiters use to control their victims. I really like to highlight this with high school kids in particular, and depending upon your school, maybe you want to talk about this with middle schoolers, but it's particularly high school. Some students are experimenting with alcohol and drugs, and this is another way to put yourself in a vulnerable position. So you're less aware of your surroundings. You have a delayed response time to danger, or zero response to danger, depending upon your level of consumption. So the safest decision, I tell kids, is just refrain from consuming alcohol or drugs. So if you attend parties, use the buddy system, check up on each other, and don't let anyone go home with someone you don't know or they don't know, because again, it's another tactic that is super important and can save your life or your friend's life. To highlight some unhealthy relationships, just some warning signs. As I mentioned before, gifting, particularly items you can't afford for yourself. I know there was one scenario where a female was at a high school football game trying to connect with students, and trying to offer cell phones and say, hey, I see your cell phone's really, really crummy. Here, you can take this one. And then, oh, okay. All right. Wow. Thanks. Well, then, okay, now you owe me for that. And here's what you're going to do for me. So that is a tactic that has been used, and it's just something to be aware of. If someone is just gifting you things out of nowhere, that's a warning sign, and just to be aware of that. And I want to talk about age difference. Even though grown adults, there may be a bit of an age difference in marriages and relationships. In high school, it's a completely different story. So if there's an age gap, even 2 to 5 years, that is a red flag. It is something you don't want to dip your toe into, that water. And if you have a student, if you have a child of your own who is dating someone and there is an age gap, I would definitely have your radar up. So isolation, if anyone's trying to physically or emotionally control you or your friend, and you've got a complete switch in interest or sports, dropping out of sports, dropping out of school activities that you once were really excited about, different change in hobbies. Those are all warning signs. If you have a sudden change in who you have been, it's really something to tap into. If you see a friend acting completely differently from how they have been acting, talk to someone so that you can possibly intervene. And again, just to highlight the gut feeling or your inner siren, just always trust your instincts about something if it doesn't feel right. So these are all warning signs, and they aren't going to necessarily happen at once. But grooming is just a very gradual process that I've seen different exploitation situations. With the grooming process, I've seen it happen in a few days, and I have seen it happen within years. So it all depends upon on the person and the scheme and the scenario. So just to be mindful of that. And red flags. So red flags can be really, really hard at in the teenage years to detect, just because of we know the frontal lobes aren't fully developed until the mid-20s. So it's super important for teachers and parents to be helping navigate situations, because things that would be a complete red flag to us as adults just would go past the goalie for teenagers. So recognizing red flags, you can't typically detect a predator by how they look online, of course. And so just learning how to detect some unsafe situations through behaviors. So it can highlight red flags. If this is really for middle schoolers. If anyone requests you to leave a gaming platform to go to another platform, that is a red flag. Extra gifting gaming tokens or online prizes, or requests for personal information, giving excess compliments, requesting to meet in person, just an absolute red flag. Requesting, if you're gaming with someone and they're requesting photos of you, no, do not do that. Remove yourself from the gaming platform and set up a new account. And also inappropriate photo requests. So I tell students, if someone is requesting an inappropriate photo of you, send a picture of your pet. And then just don't engage. Don't engage, because if you are caught with an inappropriate image on your device, you could be held liable. You could even, you could be prosecuted. So don't mess with it. If someone's trying to obtain an inappropriate photo from you, definitely tell a trusted adult, because if someone truly is interested in you for you, and not just what you look like, they're not going to ask you for that, because that's a complete boundary violation and a complete lack of respect for you. So stay away from that for sure. One thing that is also just, if as you're walking around and just kind of you're learning a little bit more about trafficking, and you're kind of trying to notice situations and people, one way that traffickers do brand their victims is tattooing. So just something to be aware of. It's one of the first things I learned when I was attending human trafficking task force meetings, and it was an eye opener. So I definitely notice a lot of these now, and it's just something to be aware of. There is a scheme called sugaring, and that is really, really common among high schoolers and college age students. So there are lots of apps and different platforms for sugaring, and the old school term sugar daddy, that's what it's playing off of. So it's posted as an option for dating, and you can get paid to go to coffee with someone, but it's actually not just coffee. they're expecting sex, and there have been definite rape cases through this application as well. So it may look enticing if you're trying to save money, in need of money, but it is it's just a gateway to exploitation. So just to be talking with students about that, it's not what it's advertised as. It's exploitation. So something to be aware of. Have you all heard of sugaring? You all, okay. Some yes, some no. Okay. I learned about 3 years ago, so it was new to me then. I like to talk about safe dating scenarios with students. They seem like just common sense to us, but to students who are just starting, to enter the dating realm, I encourage group dates. Just a great way to go out as with a group and get to know people, and it's less nerve-wracking if you're with a group versus one-on-one. And meet at a public location. If you don't know the person, absolutely meet at a public location and safeguard your drink. So even though you're not of drinking age, if you're not drinking alcohol, it doesn't matter. Your drink can be drugged regardless. So just be safeguarding your drink. Have at least 2 trusted people know where you're going. Ideally, a family member and a friend know your whereabouts. And it's okay to make up an excuse if you need to leave, if you're just not connecting with that person, if you feel uncomfortable. You don't owe the person anything if they bought you dinner, and you don't owe them any more time if you feel uncomfortable. And I highly recommend a code word for family and friends. You can text them if you need to get out of an uncomfortable situation, and they can text you back and make up an excuse to come and get you. And on the first date, when you're at your public location, never ever go to a second location. You always want to keep it public, and I would encourage you to do that for the second date until you're really comfortable and know the person really well. So those are things that I like to mention at this age, high school age in particular. And building on that, these are the past few slides are part of the curriculum. I just wanted to highlight that, and talking about just being street savvy and aware of your surroundings. So it's really not a good idea if you're leaving Target to be on your cell phone talking to your friend or your parent. That's not good because you're not aware of your surroundings. Walking facing traffic is huge. And confidence matters, carrying yourself in a self-assured manner. I talked to a mall security guard, and he would watch and observe many, many different scenarios. And people who are potential exploiters will go up to an individual or a group and offer compliments and flattery. And let's say someone comes up to you and says, "You are so adorable." And you look them in the eye and say, "Well, thanks so much." And you keep walking. They are not going to mess with you. If someone gives you a compliment and you look down at your shoes and can't make eye contact and don't have a response, they are going to try harder to connect with you. So even if you're shy, I tell kids, fake it. Just fake it to get out of those uncomfortable situations. Posture makes a statement. Posture says a lot. I encourage kids to get off your phones and go to a public place and observe. You can tell so much about someone without any words. You can tell so much about someone's energy that they give off just by their posture, their facial expressions, their demeanor. So even like the next level is where you are and what they might be wearing, but you can tell so much by all those nonverbal cues. So make it a game. Go sit at a park, go sit at the mall, even if you're at the airport, if you're traveling again, observe. Take time to observe and realize that everyone gives off a different energy, a different vibe, and always trust your gut regarding that. Put your phone away, as I mentioned, when you're walking. There's safety in numbers, so just stay with people and lights, and invest in your own protection. Get a group of friends and take a self-defense class. It's fun, and you feel so much empowerment from it. And it just gets your body to move past your freeze. So I think that is just a number one safety tool you can give yourself. So I highly recommend that. And also within the curriculum, I talk about a student's digital footprint. Less is more. I know in this age, there is just so much oversharing done online, and that can put you in a high risk situation. And I just want to tell, especially the girls, and not just the girls, but I see a lot of bikini shots out there. I see a lot of very seductive poses by preteens, and that is very dangerous because you are showing that you are looking for attention, and there are people out there more than willing to give it to you, and it's not going to be safe. So I just really like to highlight that objectification does not equal empowerment, not at all. Just keep it classy. Keep it classy regarding what you wear and show how you respect yourself by how you present yourself. True empowerment is getting your needs met through healthy means. And as I mentioned previously regarding someone you may have an interest in is asking you for an inappropriate picture, that is so not cool. That is just not cool. No need to engage with a relationship or a friendship with someone like that. It's healthy and normal to want to connect with others. We're wired for connection, and doing so in a safe way is vital. So many things to be aware of. I do like to talk to kids about a study date scenario. I have a turn and talk moment in the curriculum. This situation really did happen, and I share this with students. There were, in a high school class, the teacher assigned students to buddy up on a project. So a male student and a female student were partnered together. They didn't know each other very well. She went over to his house to start the project. There was another person home. They went into the basement of this student's home, and he sexually assaulted her. And this is devastating, and it is never, ever the victim's fault. And I talk to kids about what could have possibly happened to make this a safer situation. And kids are so smart. They say they can go to the library. They could buddy up and do a 4-person group. They could go to a coffee shop, keep it at a public location. So just things to have at the top of their mind going forward in their life to keep them safer. So I'm all about avoid high risk situations so that you can be safe. And one tool that I like to share, this just came out last month. I like to share this with parents and educators, and I highly recommend it for high school students. It's a 36-minute documentary called Raised on Porn, and it's available on YouTube. You can just search it up. It is fantastic. It just shows what a slippery slope it is, and how people who have voids themselves are looking for unhealthy ways to find connection. And porn is contributing to a lot of the sexual violence we are seeing right now and exploitation. So I highly recommend this as a tool. I've watched it. It's great. And I wanted to also highlight that following our presentations to students in schools, we highly encourage students to spark a student-led group, because we know students are going to talk to one another more than typically a parent. And so it's so important for them to share with each other different things that are happening within their relationships, different things that they're seeing online. They have their fingers on the pulse of a lot of what is happening online. So being able to talk to each other and share is huge. And knowing they're not alone, particularly if they've experienced a sexual assault or some grooming behaviors, it's just really wonderful to bounce ideas off other students and say, hey, what do you think about this? Has this ever happened to you? I'm getting kind of uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. And we just encourage a school liaison, like a counselor or a teacher, be connected to the group and have check-ins with the group. And I have a lot of really fantastic content for students to like have discussions within their groups and activities to do. So I know I just went through a ton, and I was wondering if anyone has questions.
I think that was such great information, and I feel like I learned a lot. You know, and honestly, it made me cringe at times because I consider myself a reasonable, you know, intelligent person, responsible, and I'm looking back at, you know, when I was younger in undergrad, and I think about some of the situations that I maybe would put myself in, and kind of like, I would never want my children to do some of the things, some of the situations that I put myself in. And again, I'm kind of a reasonable, responsible person, and I only kind of, you know, through sheer luck, things could have gone much, much differently. And so, yeah, when I'm hearing all these things, I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it's so easy to.
Mm-hmm. It's just so much easier now with all the exploitation that starts online. So
you talked a little bit about speaking to young children. I always had the sense that if we could, you know, conversations about consent with young children, and kind of like your body belongs to you, and you don't have to hug, you know, especially with the holiday season coming up, telling kids that they don't have to hug if they don't feel like it, and they could do, you know, an elbow bump, or they could find a different way, you know, to say hello. I just feel like if we could do that in a more consistent way with young children, the later conversations become less tricky, you know, instead of you know, more uncomfortable and more scary. The seeds, the building blocks can be placed early. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you mentioned safe touch and unsafe touch, and you talked a little bit about some other ideas. What are some things that educators can talk to young children about?
So I would highly recommend schools to connect with Childhood Victories to have their body safety education. It's phenomenal, and it's you can choose to have a live presentation with a person coming in. You can choose live stream or have access to an online portal, and it's all done for you. So that's excellent. But some of the language that is used within the programming is what I said about safe touch and unsafe touch, and talking about different groups of people. Like, so talking about just you're on a field trip, and is it okay for the bus driver to look or touch your private body parts? Like, thumbs up or thumbs down? No, thumbs down. And so just, what about your coach? How many of you play a sport? Okay. Is it okay for your coach to look or touch your private body parts? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Yeah, no, that's not okay. And going through, like, what you go to the dentist, and what is the dentist checking out? It's checking out your teeth, making sure your teeth are clean and healthy. Is it okay for a dentist to look or touch your private body parts? No, thumbs down. And then clarifying, okay, mom and dad help you in the bath. So they're helping you in the bath because they're keeping you clean and sometimes healthy. Maybe you have a situation where mom and dad may have to help keep you healthy in that region, in your private area. But so just getting specifics, like, okay, it's all right for my mom and dad to help keep me clean. It's okay for my doctor to look or touch my private body parts because they're keeping me healthy. But then going through other people in your life, and for the kids, you know, for the 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys who are experiencing a form of sexual abuse, then it's a radar going off, like, okay, you know, just like, all right, planting seeds. And so then kids absolutely come up with questions. They come up to Victor or whomever is presenting and ask like clarifying questions or disclose. So it's just very simple language so that kids just understand like this is really the only reason why someone is going to have to look at your private area. And then also talking about like if someone punching you or kicking you, is that safe? Is that a safe touch? No, that's not. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel angry. It makes, in interacting with the kids. So identifying certain situations and how that makes them feel. So even though it's really targeted, Victor's curriculum is called Be Seen and Heard. It is targeting sexual abuse, but it is also covering physical abuse as well, and other forms of bullying. So even talking about playground scenarios and what may happen on the playground. And so did that help answer a little bit? Okay.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. You bet.
I posted Victor's website in the link on the YouTube page as well. So
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What about sometimes we run across students who are either making comments to other students, kind of victimizing other students, maybe by touching or showing or things of that nature. So I'm assuming that that's a red flag for something's going on within maybe their world. They're feeling or they think that this is okay to go and okay. What are some other kind of red flags? I'm thinking I work with elementary school students. So what would be some red flags within that age range?
Really great question. Some red flags would be it's dependent on how well you know the student, of course, but a change in behavior, regression in behavior, maybe just more emotional. If it's a student who's, normally happy-go-lucky and they like just cry at the drop of the hat or get angry at the drop of a hat, just changes in emotion, for a family to recognize this, not as much of a teacher, but bedwetting. If a student or if a child has been potty trained and is all of a sudden having issues wetting the bed, that is, it's not 100% red flag. I know that can happen. You're anxious about doing, starting a new school year or something, that can definitely happen. But if that is a frequent issue that is popping up, I would definitely check into that. So regression, change in behavior, and clinginess, neediness. I know a situation where a student was just using baby talk all of a sudden. And so that was really perplexing to the mom, and the mom did some digging and found out that there was some sexual abuse going on. So those are the things I'd say I'd highlight the most. When I've been in the classroom presenting, I will talk to teachers about this ahead of time, watching for nonverbal reactions. So if we talk about the swimsuit rule, so the swimsuit covers your private body parts. So no one touches your private body parts unless it's to keep you clean and healthy. And I might see some eyes pop out. I might see some red faces. The kids might have to go to the bathroom, just have an excuse to get out of the classroom. So it's not 100%, but it's something to look into that the teacher should just keep an eye on if those nonverbal behaviors pop up during a presentation. Something to watch for.
All right. Super, super important presentation. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us.
Thanks for having me. I know it's not easy to talk about. It's not easy to take in, but it's so, so important. And if we can help kids be be safer through education. It's just a tremendous win on multiple levels.
And I hope that, yeah, we can continue to advocate as school psychologists for those types of trainings. I know that in my district, you know, our guidance counselors go in, our school counselors go in and do presentations. And then we have, for staff, there's a required human trafficking webinar type of thing that people go through. And honestly, when I first saw that and came to the district, that was really helpful for me because I had a lot of misconceptions as far as what that looked like. And it wasn't until I went through that webinar that I was like, oh, okay, this is not what I originally envisioned. So I think that's really important.
That's excellent. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I think just that you mentioned there aren't a whole lot of state associations against human trafficking. So finding some in our areas, or whether it's in our state or our region, would be really helpful, I think, for school psychologists in particular to connect with just being more informed and more trained. So this was really helpful.
Oh, well, I'm really glad that you had me, and thank you for being open to it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Just before we close, want to read our quick thank you to our sponsor, Med Travelers. As a leader in school staffing, the genuine care, benefits, and guidance that Med Travelers demonstrates with school psychologists is the mark of a true partner in career success. To learn more about Med Travelers and discover the ways that they can help you succeed in your school psychology career, visit medtravelers.com/schoolpsyched. Thank you, everyone, and I hope everyone enjoyed the upcoming time off for the Thanksgiving break.
Thank you.